What is up, folks? We're back breaking down The Bear. My name is Justin Khanna. We're just going to let this beautiful intro montage play while I just say thank you to you folks for just being awesome with getting so much love on the first 2 episodes, and I just decided we're going to do the rest of the show season by season as we get into the next season, but we're going to go episode by episode.
I didn't cause it. I can't control it. I can't cure it. And because my husband drank so much, this would happen.
This is an incredibly underrated part about this whole show, the fact that it talks not just about the kitchen side, but like the personal life of the people. The thing is, I'm not going to spend specific moments of these breakdowns talking about them. I'm going to focus more on the kitchen side of this show because I'm not a therapist or a psychologist or even a medical professional. It's not my arena.
What's wrong with you fucking jack-offs? We're down 6 sausage pepper, 5 Greeks, and a ravioli. Let's go.
We're down that because you are not firing.
Shits. What shits?
I need shits.
Listen to the words coming out of my fucking mouth.
A lot of people have this gear that they go into where things go wrong and it's like turn up the volume. And so that's kind of what you're seeing with Carmy. This is one of those situations where you default to wanting to go faster, but it's one of the only times in a professional kitchen, there are a lot of times, when slowing down is actually the solution. Like, take a step back, look at what you have on order, refire to the line so that they know that they can pick up things, and then just continue to go, versus having a screaming match, especially in front of the customers.
Cindy, head in the game. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking crazy?
Learn how to use a fucking computer.
Are you good?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes, chef.
Thank you, chef.
The worst. This is why Yes Chef has gotten such a bad rap. When it's just put your head down, all rally behind the same team, charge forward. It's so motivating to just be like, yes, chef. But it turned into this weird passive-aggressive thing at some point along the line.
Great, chef.
And like you can read it in the body language, like crossed arms, nearly rolling eyes. This sucks to see, and I've certainly been there when it's, are you going to be set up?
Great, chef.
Are you going to be there?
Yes, chef.
Are you going to be ready?
Great, chef.
Do you have it under control?
Yes, chef.
And even though you're lying, like it's not okay, but you're saying yes, chef, and that it's a combination of the two, right? Yes, when it really means no, it's a lie directed towards chef being like the person above you. And so it creates this weird like power dynamic that's happening. Again, I don't have a fix for it. I just think that it turned into this like catch-all phrase that we started to use, and it shouldn't have ever been used that way. You'll notice a lot of night and early morning scenes because not a lot of us are out during the day. When you're working in a restaurant, you're out and about when other people are sleeping or resting, and then they come to you when you're working. So it's just a little bit backwards.
Oh. Yeah, flashbacks.
I copied them out of your books. I mean, if it's too much, I could take it down.
Old school, I love it.
It looks good.
The colors are wild. It gets me thinking.
It takes 12 people to prep that. Wow.
So a couple things I'm noticing. This is a fun move where if you take slices of, this can be radish, this can be kohlrabi, this looks like plum to me, and it's like a circular slice, and then you take the circular slice and you cut at this, you put your knife in the center of that thin slice, and you drag it all the way out and slice so that you have this thing where you can curl it, and it turns into like a cone of a sliced fruit or vegetable. They're doing the move where you do like some sort of coulis or fruit puree on the plate, and then you can pour sauce or oil or another coulis inside of it. And unless that bottom thing takes a lot of work, I find it hard to believe that this would actually take 12 people to prep. The most that I've heard about is the meat fruit at dinner by Heston Blumenthal. I know for a fact at one point in time had 3 people just running that station because they would go, it was at least somewhere between 100 and 200 covers a day, and nearly everybody who went to that restaurant would order that dish. 12 people on one dish, I find it hard to believe that those numbers, specific numbers, are true. I think that was inflated for a little bit of dramatic effect here.
Wow. Yeah, I plated that. every night.
Hold on, 17 chefs.
There's 4 sets of plum in
Okay,
this.
foie gras. Interesting.
There's plum wine. You just cook it, and you cook it, and you cook it, and you cook it until it becomes syrup. You know, it takes hours. 2 shifts, 2 different people just watching that shit.
Yes, chef.
And then you have your plum consommé, which is black plums cooked down with black vinegar, salt, sugar. Somebody's got to be stirring that forever so the sugar doesn't burn. And then your compressed plums, which are these perfect, fresh plums cut into perfect 4-centimeter squares.
See, that's the thing. They're not squares. So I'm not seeing diced plum on this dish. There's circles of plums for sure.
The chef wanted the gelée to be like the consistency of Haribo gummy bears, which we could never do. Thick, but also squishy. You know, he spent every minute of like a year trying to figure it out.
So how do you do it?
Well,
Feel fat.
What?
Feel fat congeals when it's cold. So
yeah. No, that's right.
So fire.
I'm calling bullshit on this scene. Okay, the things that are true about this scene. The desire for consistencies on certain components is absolutely true. The idea that if you have a recognizable texture, aka a Haribo gummy bear, that you happen to really be able to point to that and you say, I love the texture of that. Wouldn't it be cool if we could take these plums and have them have the texture of Haribo gummy bears? That is the inspiration of countless dishes on menus across the world. The problem is the R&D that happens, the artificial flavorings that are used, even if you want to use like a genuine, like you want to use plum juice, if an R&D team happened to be using a essential oil or an alcohol or something to flavor whatever candy that they're making, by definition, you aren't going to be able to achieve that texture because you're using a different base. Like if they're using an oil and you're using something that's water-based, you have to add different things to be able to nail that texture. And so sometimes you can't get it quite right. And so you might have to adjust over and over and over again. I'm going to kind of call bullshit, but the process of constantly tweaking, the desire to have different textures be represented in a dish, that part is true. I don't think cracking the nut on using veal fat, but sometimes it does end up with a surprising
Mission
solution.
accomplished. Let me get that for you, chef.
no, I'm okay. Thank you.
You sure?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, this is a 28-ounce can, right? So why wasn't Michael buying number 10s, which are 102 ounces? They're cheaper per ounce.
Great call out by Carmen, obviously just being someone who's price conscious, but also think about the labor savings that are happening.
Buddy, go ahead, grab one.
Hot shit, Carm. Hot shit.
Ooh, hey, Carm, the phone ringing.
Yep, I hear that. Thank you,
Uniform day.
Marcus. Manny, Angel, go ahead, you grab one too.
I just follow orders even if it leads to tension and chaos and resentment and ultimately doesn't work. But yeah, that's what I do. Sorry.
Yes,
I'm
chef.
Sue.
At this restaurant, probably it's a job. It's a come in, clock out, and the desire for kind of prim and proper setups on things might not resonate with these folks. And so that's why this scene is potentially kind of falling flat on its face, because I don't understand why we're putting this in place. I don't have an internal desire to be more organized. Giving me some title isn't necessarily going to be the thing that gets me there. There has to be a different motivation.
Every day we'll start with a pre-shift meeting. Then we'll do a front of house walkthrough.
Front of house walkthrough is something that totally happens, but not in a place like this. This didn't sell it to the team very well of like, how is this helping me on my day to day, where you're putting the system in place, but I don't see how it benefits me.
I know it seems like a lot and kind of annoying, but I promise this type of structure will be super helpful. It'll make things run smoother, calmer.
Chef, I gotta run a quick errand. Could you hold down the board? Thank you, Chef.
Just like that.
Not a bad technique. Like, hold it, yes, holding it by the end and going like that, but you're leaving so much peel on. That's the other problem with this brigade structure that I think that the chef de parties, the rest of the team, isn't really enjoying, is this idea of like, there's a check system where Sydney goes around and checks everybody's mise en place. Like, I totally understand why it has to happen in certain environments because there's just so much to keep track of and things start to compound if negative elements of prep start to happen, like this, a sauce isn't seasoned or something's broken, but it can tend to have this very negative ripple through the entire team when everybody feels like all they're trying to do is appease the person who's doing the checks versus just make great food. And it's not fun for her.
Okay, looks
She's not
good
having
in
fun.
here. We got this. So.
See, she didn't even check.
Corner.
Just checking the box. Sabotage. Sabotage.
Yo! Shit. Fuck.
Oh, sorry.
It's got spoiled.
Yes.
It's too cloudy.
Yes,
the
it's
heat was
too
too high.
high.
You didn't
I
steam
know,
it
I
properly.
put
Also,
it
you cannot
lower
add
earlier.
veg before it's boiled. You know better than that
Lower.
shit.
I had a great thing taught to me, which is the aromatics in stock should be sometimes steeped like tea. You don't ever think of tea as something that's like you're brewing tea at a rolling boil for like 45 minutes. You can have things infuse, especially if it's water soluble, at like pretty low temperatures. Like you can have something at 180 degrees Fahrenheit and get a lot of the benefits of an infusion happen, especially with meat related stocks and sauces, is that the agitation of a rolling boil breaks down proteins and collagen into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. And then that sometimes tends to give a stock or sauce cloudiness. Whereas if you were to kind of keep it low and slow, then everything will kind of stay on the bone and it's not going to get jostled around and kind of mixed.
Okay, well, at least it's a jus, so
No,
maybe
no,
we
no,
can
no. It needs
use
to be
it
a demi. You need to strain it, add more onions, add more veal stock.
Yes, reduce. I know how to make a stock.
Okay. It'll take 30 minutes. Let's go.
That's a frustrating point when you get brought back to basics when you screw something up, when it's like, it's not that I don't know how to make it. It's that I didn't know that the thing was on high. This resonates because I felt that, like, I know what that feels like when you get told this is how to use a blender. And it's like, of course I know how to use a blender, but like somebody left the blender on high and then I went on and put my thing on and I didn't check and I just turned it on and my thing exploded all over the ceiling.
Yes, chef.
Thank you.
What if we started being like, yes, restaurant, don't make the word chef this thing that like it starts to become a hollow shell of what it actually means. What if we were just like had a different phrase of just like, just keep moving on. Like you do it for the name on the front, not the name on the back. Kind of a funny onion montage. She's cutting it like you dice it.
Chefs, walk through.
All right, quick low boy check. You have 2 pounds of butter still in the packaging. You know, that could be in a container for sure. The dented deli containers that aren't consolidated down, one is open and one is just plastic wrapped. So the lid of the deli on the right has been opened, so that has been used, and the plastic wrap was still left on. Huge pet peeve. Take the plastic wrap all the way off, because it's something that just looks crappy. Like, look at that. She opens the low boy and she's like, this looks like trash. Like, please fix this. This deli container being knocked over is definitely one thing. This like little garbage piece that's in here, this not having a lid on it, and then these just being out in the open, like you can tell the leaves are kind of drying out a little bit. But other than that, there's nothing like food safety wise that's bad about this. Like if there was like a whole raw chicken just sitting on the rack here, like that's not good. You can see this feta cheese is not at a 90-degree angle. And so if you can keep your low boy knolled so everything is at a 90-degree angle, that tends to make it look a little bit more aesthetically organized without even changing the contents of the low boy. You can keep the same stuff in there, just how you arrange it just looks a little bit more put together.
Guys, where's my onions? Where are my onions?
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a very good one.
I don't know.
Hey.
You didn't take my onions, did you?
No. No. They did this to me last week. It's just part of paying your dues.
Okay, this is a great point. I remember I saw the comments about Carmen getting his onions, or they did the same thing to me last week, something along those lines. And that was what led people to say that the knife underneath the low boy clip that I posted, hiding the knife underneath the low boy could have been a prank. But from what he said, it's like they did the same to my onions last week is kind of what I'm hearing. Again, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong on this, but that's what I'm hearing, that Carmen got his prepped mise en place. He isn't talking about gear. At least that's how I'm hearing it here.
You are angry right now. Damn, we got you.
And then they do the ragging on part, right? Like they wait until they see it, and then it's funny. Like the payoff for them is in the like seeing you freak out part, whereas with the knife that didn't happen, and so that's where it lends me to believe that they didn't pull the knife prank on Carmen again, but this onion prank definitely did happen.
Let me help you.
No, don't.
Are you sure?
I am fucking sure. Do you ask Carmen if he's sure? No,
saying, it's just
you don't.
heavy.
So you stick to your shit, okay? I'll stick to mine.
Yeah, chef.
All right, this is a 22 quart Cambro that is filled up to at least the 16 quart line. That's 32 pounds of veal stock that she's pulling down from the top shelf, and she's probably at different points of pulling this down, only holding it with one arm. So just trying to give a little bit of a weight thing there. This is never good. That's so expensive too. That's so much money. Veal stock, I think I did a costing once where I took a 16-ounce deli container and I did the math, and this was pork sauce. This was not veal sauce. And veal bones are typically more expensive than pork bones. Man, and I did the math on one 500 milliliter deli of pork sauce, and it was something like $85. If you've made sauce and stock before, it hurts. Extra hurts. Dope that he's jumping in to help clean it up and not giving her shit.
Just keep going.
That's dope, man, because there's certainly a few people that I've worked with who would have taken every opportunity to just chew me out after a moment like that. All right. A couple people might ask, like, why isn't she going to the hospital if she cut her finger? When you cut yourself on your finger, sometimes the extremities, right? Like the tips of your fingers, your knuckles, sometimes the palm of your hand, sometimes, but not really. Like, it just bleeds a lot. Like, it actually isn't that painful. It just continues to bleed. I'll tell a quick story that is incredibly painful, so if you're kind of squeamish, you might want to kind of move to the next, skip ahead a little bit. I cut the tip of this middle finger off once. I was slicing shallots, and I was kind of droning off. It was really early for me, and I cut the tip of my finger pretty much clean off. There's just a big scar that's there. And the problem that I had was I put a towel. Mine was a Seafold towel. She's using like a brown paper towel for her finger. And the first kind of bleeding stopped. I put another Seafold on it, and then I put a glove on, and I worked all of service. And the long story short of it is I didn't change it out. And so basically a scab formed between the Seafold towel and the blood that was coming out of my finger. And so at the end of the night, I took my glove off, and I basically had to have someone like hold my arm down and rip off the Seafold, and then the blood just kind of went crazy again. And that's why, if you're watching this, it's not that she's not in pain. Of course it's painful, but these fingers, these extremity cuts often heal really quickly too. And so it's not something where you're going to say, oh, well, I'm going to go to the hospital, or I'm going to like use some first aid stuff, get the bleeding to kind of subside, and then put like a proper bandage on it, and you won't have the same problem that I dealt with. And so don't be too macho or neglect your wounds, because then you get an ugly scar like I have on my finger, which is not all that fun. Okay, I had this happen to me once where, you know, where you have some prep projects where like you kind of have to do them once a week or maybe twice a week. I had a day where not only did I have my normal prep that I had to do, but it was something ridiculous. Like 4 of those projects all needed to happen on that same day. I was so behind. And I was like looking at my list, and I was like, I have to be set up for service in an hour, and I have 3 hours of prep left. Like at least 3 hours of prep left. And I just had a moment where I was just like so down in the dumps, and you could visibly see it on my face. I was just not uppity. I was quiet. I looked visibly like upset, and my obviously in those moments, you don't eat. Like I skipped staff food that day, and I was just going straight into service. Everybody went and left and ate staff food, and I stayed back in the kitchen and I kept prepping. And at the start of service, chef kind of just like made me a sandwich. We were like developing lunch service, and the chef just made me a sandwich and told me to go sit outside. And I just remember like crying. I like sat outside just like this, and the chef came out and was like, "You good?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I just needed to like sit down and eat a sandwich." And he was like, "We're gonna make sure that you're set up, blah 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 blah." And it was awesome. And like that was one of my like, it sounds like such a shitty story, but like it was a great, like this scene made me think about that moment for me. I also know that I talked about the deli containers in one of the first episodes, but a lot of people really liked this scene because Carmen is drinking out of a deli container. This is a 32-ounce one, which is cool because you don't take a second to drink water in the same way that, like, if you're an office worker, you drink a bunch of water out of a water bottle. And so you can kind of you could fill this up all the way and just chug it, which is really awesome. And these are also great to like make iced coffees in or lemonades in, because if you have like a half of a lemon, you can just squeeze it in there. It's awesome to make one of these for yourself, and it lasts a longer time than other smaller glasses.
You know, I think this place could be so different from all the other places we've been at. But in order for that to be true, we need to run things different.
There's a great quote, if nothing changes, then nothing changes. And it's this idea of if you take the same people with the same structure in the same environment, there's very little room for innovation to happen, because the way that the game is designed is kind of baked in from the start. And even Carmen coming up with a brigade structure to run the team with tends to make me think that it's just going to default to what these guys exactly don't want.
Said, and I don't want to be wasting my time working on another line or tweezing herbs on a dish that I don't care about, or running brunch, God forbid.
All right, solid brunch joke there. I think the reason that most chefs don't enjoy working brunch is because most guests tend to crave a very specific 5 to 10 items on a brunch menu. And it's a very social thing, right? Going out to brunch with your friends is fun. There's usually some alcohol involved, and it's often something that comes after a really busy shift. And so there's this dichotomy that restaurants run into, which is brunch is an incredible moneymaker. A lot of the ingredients that you're working with on brunch, unless you're making like crab and white truffle Benedicts, is pretty affordable, so the margins are usually better. Problem is, if it's Sunday brunch, what just happened before Sunday brunch? Saturday night dinner service, which is the busiest day. And most restaurants don't staff an extra brunch team. And so you ultimately have to have the people from Saturday night who just got done at 1 a.m., got home at 2 a.m., come back at 8 a.m. the next morning to prep for an 11 a.m. open for brunch the next morning with a different menu than what was on Saturday. So it's like you're prepping different things, you're exhausted from the night before, and it's just this rowdy bunch of people that just want like crazy dietary modifications. And there's a table of 12 that just came in, and everybody's drinking, and it's just this whole, it's not fun to work brunch. If you have other reasons for why you don't like brunch, certainly leave them down low.
Fucking brunch.
Fuck brunch.
Fuck brunch.
Fuck brunch.
We're gonna get rocked tonight.
Oh, absolutely fucking destroyed, yeah.
I'll end this episode just by talking about the fact that I'm a fan of the cinematography in this whole entire show. It's just a beautifully done show. So that's the compliment that I'll give there. I will see you folks when we talk about episode 4 in the next episode.